It's HPR1, and I'm Dave Lawrence. This Saturday on Kauai, a legendary musician, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member, starting a tour of the islands, Roger McGuinn. Name you may know from his time with the Byrds. Certainly the songs you're familiar with. Turn, 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 Mr. Tambourine Man, 8 Miles High, So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star. We're lucky to have him joining us on the line right now. Hey, Roger, how's it going?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much for taking some time to talk to us. We really appreciate it. You a fan of public radio at all?
Absolutely. That's all I ever listened to.
Okay. Then you're right at home here.
All things considered.
That's what you're on right now.
Right.
For folks who are coming to your shows...
I do kind of a one-man show. It's like a one-man play. It's autobiographical. I talk about how I got into the music business and people I met along the way. I tell stories between the songs. The songs from the Byrds, I do Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn, 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 8 Miles High. So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star. And I do songs from my solo career like King of the Hill and some songs from my Folk Den project, which is A Labor of Love.
Fans who followed you online know about the Folk Den. Can you kind of explain?
It started back in 1995 when I heard a Smithsonian Folkways album of traditional music, and it reminded me that I wasn't hearing a lot of traditional music from the new breed of folk singers. I started putting songs up on the internet for free download. I've been doing that since November of 1995. I haven't missed a month with the lyrics, the chords, and a little story about the song. What it means to me, too, where I learned it.
So you started this idea, it was November of 1995.
That's correct. Kind of early for the internet.
It lends itself to, in 2000, you ended up in a Senate committee or something, basically talking about downloading and royalties.
Yeah, I went to the Senate hearing called, Is There an Upside to Downloading? It was right about the time Napster was popular. I came across with saying it's kind of the new radio. It's publicity for the artists. Might be bad for big record companies, but it's good for artists because it gets their stuff out there. I remember Lars from Metallica didn't agree with me. He was sitting next to me, and he was there to protest because somebody had pirated his album, and they were upset about that, which I can understand. But I think in general it's good for new artists, and it's probably better for artists than it is for record companies.
You've got this device, you can plug into it on your phone, at your house, wherever, and you can use YouTube, you can use other services. It's really a strange concept, huh? To when you were young and you had to wait for a song or you had to go buy it.
Yeah, I used to have to go to the record store and buy a 45 for a buck.
Right.
Take it home and play it, and they'd wear out and get scratched and poppy and breaking. But these days, you're right, you don't have to own music. If I want to hear something, I go to YouTube. That's my go-to place for music.
It's a revolution. Tend to hear a cat like yourself say that. Before the Byrds, you were able to gain some experience with some noteworthy artists, Judy Collins, who's been on the program, Bobby Darin, Simon and Garfunkel, to name some well-known collaborators. And one led to an actual songwriting gig, the famous Brill Building in New York.
Well, I was working for Bobby Darin as a backup musician and harmony singer. And then his voice kind of gave out, and he decided to take a break from touring. So he opened up a publishing company in the Brill Building and invited me to move to New York and become a songwriter. The pay was really low. It was $35 a week, which was something out of like a 30s movie. and so to supplement my income, I did a lot of studio work with Judy Collins and Paul Simon and Irish Rovers and other artists that were out there. Really didn't enjoy going to the Brill Building. It was like an office gig, which I was used to the road, the excitement of traveling and getting on stage. I didn't really stay with it very long. I only managed to write one song that got to be a hit in Australia. It's a song called Beach Ball, done by Jimmy Hannon, who was the Australian Elvis Presley. And the guys who sang backup on it were the Bee Gees.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The picture you paint of working in that place is sterile, weird, anti-rock and roll kind of thing.
It was modules. You go to an office, and it was broken up into cells, really, 8x5 offices. And so you'd sit there on a metal folding chair. You know, you go there and you work sort of 9 to 12, and you get like a lunch break, and then you come back and work till 5 and go home. And I really didn't dig it. It was like not my thing, but I think it was a great experience, knowing how to form songs, how to write the verses and the choruses and the bridges and different elements that go into songs. I'd say it was a good experience, and it did teach me the craft of songwriting, which I have used in the Byrds and other places. So, yeah, it was a good thing.
As that experience was one that you said not as much fun and kind of being like in the suit side of the business, the opposite end of it, I'm assuming, from a fan's point of view, your collaborative efforts with Bob Dylan, whether it's the soundtrack to Pat Garrett, Billy the Kid, which included Knockin' on Heaven's Door, whether it's Ronaldo and Clara, done around the time of Dylan's Rolling Thunder Review Tour, which you were a part of. If you can kind of just get us to the first time that Bob came into your life.
Well, I met Bob. I didn't really meet him. I saw him in the Village when he was there. I saw him at Gertie's Folk City before he was hired as an act there. He was just doing a hootenanny, which was called an open mic these days. I said hi to him and everything. And then he came to our studio in L.A. when the Byrds were getting together, and we'd already decided to record Mr. Tambourine Man, and he and Bobby Newirth showed up, and they listened to a few of the songs we were doing, including Mr. Tambourine Man, and they liked the treatment. They liked that we were putting a Beatles kind of approach to the folk songs, and he gave us his endorsement. He said, yeah, you can do it, even though his manager, Albert Grossman, wanted to take it down. It was somebody, and it went up the charts and got that. So that's the first time I met Bob. And then he came and sat in with us at Ciro's, played harmonica with us. And then I toured with him on 1975 Rolling Thunder tour, and that was incredible, with Joan Baez and Joni Mitchell, Allen Ginsberg. I have such great memories of that tour. He used to live in Malibu, and I did too. And he'd come over to my house, and we'd hang out. And that's how I got the Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid thing. He invited me to come down to the film studio and record the soundtrack of that.
In your downtime, would you talk about music, or would you venture into other topics?
Yeah, we talk about everything. We talk about different things. But one time we kind of ran down all the folk songs we knew, and he showed me all the folk songs that he'd been influenced by, and I showed him the ones I had, and we kind of compared notes. We spent hours doing that. And other times he'd come over and I'd show him movies. He said, man, it's hard work to watch a movie.
And it would be just you and Bob Dylan?
Yeah. He'd come over with other people, like Chris Christopher or Harry Dean Stanton, Bobby Newirth, different people.
And when you got that Rolling Thunder review gig, how did they get in touch with you? They call your agent? They call you? Was it Bob himself? I mean, that must have been such an honor for you.
I was on tour with my band. I stopped in the Village, went to the bitter end, which is, I think, called the other end at that point. It changed names. I walked in the back room, and there was Bob and Jacques Levy sitting at a table. Now, Jacques Levy is a Broadway writer, producer, director. He was very dramatic. He got up and kind of threw the table over, and they were both drinking brandies, and the brandy went flying like in an old cowboy movie or something. And they said, Roger, we were just talking about you. We were thinking about putting this tour together, and we want you to go on it. I said, oh, man, I can't do it. I got all these dates booked with my band. And they said, And then the next day, Ratso, Larry Sloman, called me up and said, you remember last night that you turned Bob Dylan down for a tour? I said, yeah. He said, that's not really a good idea. I said, you're right. So I called my agent, and I canceled the tour with my band, and I went on the Rolling Thunder tour, and I haven't regretted that.
Of course you haven't. What a beautiful thing. It's Roger McGuinn. He's got a lot of great stories to tell, great music to share, innovative presentation he's doing. I hope that you had a good time talking today on All Things Considered, one of your favorite shows.
It is indeed. I love public radio, and I listen to All Things Considered. You did a great job.
Roger, be safe, brother, and I look forward to seeing you when you're here.
Okay, great. Aloha. This is Roger McGuinn, and you're tuned to All Things Considered with my friend Dave Lawrence on member-supported Hawaii Public Radio.